Okay, go.
We're with our favorite child psychologist today, Katyana Azman. Good to see you
morning.
again, Katyana.
Morning.
So today we're talking about children and the benefit of having pets while growing up.
Yes.
Did you have pets while growing up?
I've had pets for as long as I could remember.
Mhm.
I think it's just my mom is a huge cat person. And so I grew up having, I think my earliest memory involves a cat. So I've always had pets.
Okay, I mean, both JD and I
Yeah.
had pets growing up as well. And I think we turn out to be pretty responsible human beings.
Yeah.
Yes.
So should all children have pets while growing up, and why?
You know, as much as it is possible to have pets, I'm a big fan of kids having pets, whether they are hamsters or dogs or cats. Like, having pets is something that has been not just from the psychological community, but also from the medical community have found it can have a lot of benefits for kids. And so, yeah, if it's something that's within a family's ability to do, ensuring that your family has pets, then I would 100% support it. And the reasons why is because, it teaches us, like you said, it teaches us responsibility from a very young age. It teaches us how to be accountable for something. And at the same time, it actually also teaches us interpersonal skills. We might not have pets that talk back, although that would be awesome. But we are learning how to interact with another living creature. And that's something that's really, really helpful for kids, especially those who are learning about communication skills and things like that.
Are those some of the benefits of children growing up with pets? Are there any more
Absolutely.
benefits?
Well, generally it's something that, it's been shown that like pets are very helpful with regards to like emotional regulation. That's why animal therapy is actually a real thing. So kids who have pets are known to be a lot better at regulating their emotions. They are able to self-soothe a lot better with animals in the house. And so those are just kind of like the main things for typical children. Children who have particular challenges such as things like autism and ADHD and things like that bring additional benefits because the need to learn how to interact with another living being is something that they might struggle with more significantly than neurotypical children. So definitely those are just some of the main benefits that we get from having pets.
And pets don't judge, right?
No, absolutely not. And pets
Please,
don't judge.
cats judge. Cats are judgmental.
Well, they low-key judge you, cats, a lot more than dogs for sure. I think that cats kind of think that you work for them most of the time. But absolutely, it is a creature or a living thing that allows you to kind of be who you are with essentially no judgment. You can actually you are also in a position to be able to learn what is appropriate and what is not appropriate. I know this might sound a little bit odd because, like I said, the pets don't talk back, but it is allowing children to actually experiment with how they interact. For example, if you were to go and, hit your cat or push your cat away in anger, your cat would probably run away and not kind of want to come back and kind of sit beside you. And so that is something that kids can kind of learn from and go like, oh, if I behave in that way, the cat's going to run away, right? So these are the types of things that, kids do learn when they're interacting with pets.
Right, so they learn cause and effect and all that kind of stuff.
Yes, exactly.
I mean, we know that there are many advantages of having pets from growing up, but are there any disadvantages about children owning pets? Can they be too young to learn the responsibility of owning a pet?
Well, from a psychological perspective, I can't really think of one. I think that there's more positives than I can really think of in terms of negatives. The only thing that I could kind of think of is whether there's a medical issue that we have to be aware of. So some children do have significant allergies. Some children might have, I've been told by my colleagues in the sort of respiratory field that having pets is possible even if you have asthma. So that kind of that belief that we previously had that if you had asthma, you shouldn't have pets is actually no longer true. But there are a lot of conditions like that might make having a pet difficult, having a pet within the home difficult. And so that might kind of make things a little bit challenging if you had a pet within the home. I remember when I was growing up, my younger brother till today is actually very allergic to cats. And well, he's kind of developed an immunity, which is something that, you know, comes with the benefit of having pets, is that it does actually help build upon your immunity. But from a young age, he was allergic to them. And so we had to give some of my pets away when I was little, and I was devastated. That did not help with my relationship with my brother at all when I was younger.
It's like you were the cause.
But you know, but till today we have lots of pets in the house. But it was a very tricky thing growing up. We had to be a lot more particular about hygiene and cleaning things down and everything, and vacuuming when we were younger, when it was really an issue for him. So yeah, there are certain medical conditions or certain situations where having a pet might be detrimental to your health. But from a psych perspective, I can't really think of one.
But I mean, must it be specific pets that a child can connect and bond with, like dogs and cats? Like, how about like fishes and turtles and even hamsters? Like something that doesn't respond to you. I mean, dogs and cats, they don't respond, but at least you can bond with them, right? You can stroke them and all that. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you know, I think that it really kind of depends on, sadly to say, the function of having the pet within the home, right? If you want to teach your child how to be responsible and teaching your child how to be accountable, then yeah, absolutely, having a goldfish is perfectly fine for that purpose. Making sure that your child is on top of the feeding schedule, the cleaning schedule, making that their kind of chore and their responsibility, that's 100% fine. But if you're looking at building upon your child's, you know, interaction skills, emotional development, then yeah, probably kind of not look at a pet that doesn't really have any type of sort of like interaction, right? So definitely like puppies, rabbits, cats, those are kind of more the preferred direction. But in terms of whether there's any pets you wouldn't kind of want to introduce within the home, I would probably think about from a safety perspective. So probably don't have pets that could cause some type of serious injury, right? So I don't know, I'm just thinking like in the realm of like snakes and really like, you know, things like that. But that might just be biased because I'm terrified of snakes. But basically having a pet that could potentially hurt your child, that would probably be something that I would probably think about before getting. But other than that, yeah, it really depends on what type of function parents are wanting a pet to fulfill.
Yeah, but there's another thing to worry about, because I do a lot of pet rescues and everything. A lot of people get pets because they're cute, or because like the year of the dog or something, then they get a dog and everything. After a while, they get rid of the dog.
Yeah.
Because parents always think that, oh, you won't be able to handle this dog, then they get rid of him. But my question is, should you be rescuing an animal? Is that a good pet to get as a first pet, maybe, you know? Because animal rescues are a bit tougher, you know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. I think that you're absolutely right. If you're dealing with animal rescues, especially animals who've been rescued from very, very traumatic circumstances, I have a friend who works with with rescues, and there's, you know, definitely a lot of challenges that come with it. Probably not a good first pet to have, or a pet or something to do when you have very young children. Not so much anything, but more just in the event that, you know, there's a lot of things that you have to help the pet kind of overcome, right? So in the case of my friend, she rescued a puppy that was severely abused, and so there was a lot of sort of fear with regards to people. He was constantly aggressive and defensive around people, and so having a young child in the environment who might not know that that's coming from a place of pain, right? You know, young children tend to kind of run up and want to cuddle things. That could be something that would put your child unintentionally in harm's way. So I think if you are rescuing animals, especially animals who have gone through a very, very, very difficult time, I would kind of just take a second and think about, you know, if we're dealing with a child who, mind you, does not have the impulse control as we do, who do not have the ability to think, you know, who have foresight like we do and go, well, you know, this dog's kind of had a really rough time, or this puppy's had a really rough time, then is it safe? You know, that should kind of be like a quick question you should ask yourself. But if we're dealing with creatures who might not, you know, or animals who might not react in an aggressive way, or they're just not so much rescued from traumatic circumstances, but just kind of like strays that you've kind of picked up by the side of the road, that kind of thing, then, you know, maybe worth considering. I'm a big fan of adopting rather than buying. You know, I'm a big fan of that. I've got quite a few sort of rescues that we've adopted who live here with us. So, you know, of course I would not say like, oh, you should go to the pet store and buy a cat, or go to a breeder and buy a cat, and that's how you should be. No, absolutely. You can have cats that you have, or dogs or animals that you've brought into your home who are, you know, strays or who have been rescued, but just think about whether that animal is in a state where they would be able to be safe, or it's safe for your child to be around. And then, yeah.
But must the pet grow up together with the child for them to have a better bond? Like, how about if you already have a pet and then you had a child later on, you know, can they also bond?
Yeah, absolutely. It's still 100% possible. You don't have to necessarily be, you know, kitten/puppies with a young child.
Yeah.
And I mean, of course, that's kind of like the ideal setup, but it is 100% possible to have adult animals come into the home. You can see all these like videos online about, you know, adult dogs or adult cats kind of just taking to new infants that come into the home. So it's really not required for them to grow up together. For any type of bonding to happen, of course, the child has to spend a significant time with the pet, right? So I had a family recently who said that they co-parent a pet with like a family friend. So the pet doesn't live with them, but the child is able to go and see the pet whenever he or she wants. But the you know, that kind of affects bonding because the child is not around the pet as often as possible. But yeah, I think it's completely irrelevant whether it's an older animal or a young animal that grow up together. Yeah.
But I always feel that like, oh, once that child is bonded with that animal, right? And then that animal passes on.
Yep.
Oh,
Yep.
how should parents handle this grief that a child is going through because they've lost their best friend, you know?
That's probably like one of the hardest consequences. And in fact, I know some people who refuse to have pets just because they don't want to put themselves through losing them one day. I actually had one of the children I was working with say that if he could wish for anything, he would wish for dogs to live as long as humans. And I just like wet teary. Like I was like, oh my gosh, that's so emotional. Yeah, it's definitely something that's really tricky. So what I would recommend to families, if you do have an aging pet that you know is kind of getting there, then I would kind of start preempting the child. And how you can do that is something which I've probably mentioned before. It's called social stories. And social stories are basically fictional stories that you can put together, and there's a lot of sites online that actually help families come up with them. There's already preset templates online, and what social stories do is that it uses an age-appropriate fun way of talking about difficult concepts. So things such as death is a main one that social stories focus on. So you could essentially go online or get the assistance of you know, a doctor or a teacher. Most teachers are equipped with the skills to do social stories now, to come up with a way to talk about death, right, in a way that is age appropriate, right? So I would probably try to preempt it, right? And then when it comes to a sudden death, so say you lost your pet in an accident or something of that nature, then I would probably try really hard to, you know, not kind of, you know, because I've seen some parents do this thing where they're like, oh, you know, but, you know, it's fine. Like, you know, we'll just get you another one, you know, something of that nature. And I'm like, no, don't do that. You know, you kind of want to help your child work through those emotions, because these are all things that they are going to need to learn as they grow up, learning how to deal with grief and learning how to deal with loss. These are all things that they're going to have to learn as they grow up. So I would recommend just kind of talking things through with your child. If your child is very young, feel free to kind of use concepts such as, you know, the cat's gone up to cat heaven, and, you know, he's probably do, you know, kind of like use concepts like that to actually help your child kind of understand that the pet has moved on. So I would kind of still try to talk your child through it. It's not going to be an easy process where they snap out of it. It might be something that is difficult. I would look to kind of ensuring that there's as much sort of positive moments in their day in that period of time. So if they're getting quite sad, just kind of say, you know, mommy or daddy knows that you you miss so and so. We really do too. So how about we do something to kind of honor him, so that when he's up there in doggy heaven, he's looking down and seeing that we did something that he loved. So what's something that we can do, you know? So you kind of create sort of positive memories such as that. And that kind of mitigates it a little bit. But I know that the loss of a pet is a really difficult one for most families.
Hey, even I can't handle it at my age.
I know, I know. I still get super devastated. Like every time I have you guys know this, I have a lot of cats.
Yeah.
And they're now at a point where most of them are senior. So I'm just like, you know, just the idea of having to lose them is dead, because some, you know, I feel like pets become a member of your family.
Yeah.
You know, and so when you lose them, it's like losing a family member, you know, but it is something that is really, really difficult, but the benefits of having a pet definitely outweigh it. And, you know, and like I said, it's a skill that kids need to learn at some point anyway.
How about kids with fear of animals? Like my 9-year-old, she suddenly developed, I think when she was about 5 or 6, she was afraid of our pet dog, our golden retriever, all of a sudden.
Okay.
And now she's just afraid of any kind of pets, like any kind of she won't go near a rabbit, she won't go near dogs or puppies, even kittens. She's terrified of them.
Yeah, that's my next question.
I have no idea.
Okay. Well, you know, the general principle is that kids are born without fear, right? That's something that fear is learned. So something must have happened for her to kind of be scared of him. So either, you know, he was in a grumpy mood and tried to take a nip at her, or something that kind of triggered it. So what I would kind of do is to try to find out the root cause of why she's scared, right? And then try to find a way to kind of integrate the pet back into her life based on what those fears are. So say she's afraid because he's taken a nip at her and that's something that she's never experienced, then what you want to do is to kind of work with that, right? Or, you know, there has to be some type of trigger as to why. And then look at whether it's appropriate. So if, say, for example, it's not a fear that really needs to be addressed. So some kids have a fear of, you know, snakes and sharks and all of those things. And if those are things that you're not really interacting with on a daily basis, then I would say kind of just leave it, right? But if it's, you know, like in your case, there's a pet in the home that she's suddenly become afraid of, then I would kind of want to understand what caused it. So I would probably want to sit her down and be like, you know, I noticed that you don't really like playing with, you know, your dog's name anymore.
Pooh Bear.
Pooh? Oh my God, that's the cutest. Sorry.
Retriever, and she named him. So
like
back when they were younger, they played. Like when they were when he was a puppy and she was young, they played together. I still don't know the exact trigger. Maybe when he grew a little bit bigger and she was still quite small. He, you know, he's a bouncing little, you know, puppy.
Yeah, bumped her or something.
Bumped into her and she fell or whatever. I think that might be the cause.
Yeah.
But how can that fear transcend to all fears of like all furry animals?
Well, I think that it's you know, the human brain is a big fan of the all or nothing concept, right? And so what that probably caused is that something bad or something unfortunate happened with your pet, and then she started thinking that all pets have that capability as well, right? So it's a defense mechanism that the human brain does, because if we are able to identify patterns very quickly, if we can apply an all or nothing concept to things, then the brain is not having to mitigate problems as it comes, right? So this is something that the brain naturally does out of efficiency. And when you have a young child who has limited life experience, they're not really able to rationalize it as quickly as us and go, well, okay, this was Pooh Bear, this was not every dog on earth, right? They don't really have the ability to do that at that age. So chances are she had something happen with Pooh Bear or something that kind of frightened her. And because she doesn't have as much exposure to a lot of dogs that where she can compare and go, oh, Pooh Bear did that, but all the other dogs didn't do that, she's developed a little bit of an all or nothing concept with all the animals, right? So that's something that we kind of need to work through. So I'd probably want to figure out what it was that caused it. So have conversations at home and be like, you know, I noticed that you don't play with Pooh Bear anymore. You know, why is that? Did Pooh Bear do something that scared you? You know, kind of make it a very fun conversation, easy conversation, and then go from there. I would want to focus on pointing out that what happened with Pooh Bear need not happen with everyone else, right? Or with everyone, but all other pets or all other animals. And then kind of gradually introduce her to that. So do things like take her to a petting zoo, or do things to kind of gradually introduce animals into her life. But yeah, first things we kind of have to find out what happened. Really.
I was actually thinking of getting her a smaller puppy.
Okay.
Just to reintroduce her to something that she's bigger than that puppy now, you know? Yeah, because Pooh Bear is huge. He's also 9, so he's huge now, and she just doesn't want to go and pet him.
Yeah.
Here's another thing though, Katyana. Let's say you have a very cuddly, super friendly pet at home.
Okay.
And anything you do to that pet is completely fine. That also doesn't teach the kid that other animals might not be the same way. So that when they go and approach another animal, they need to, how do you teach them that not all animals are all friendly and cuddly and everything? You know what?
So, absolutely. And if you think about it, this is kind of like teaching kids about how every human being is also different, right? So see, this is just another skill that we can basically teach them. But, very good point. I would probably want to, as they get older or as they interact with other animals, kind of point that out, right? So this is actually something that happened quite recently with one of my nephews, where he has a cat at home who you can do whatever you want with. And he came to visit, and then he just went all out on one of my older cats, who was just like, oh my God, get away from me, right? And you could just see the look of horror on the cat's face. So that was something that kind of surprised him, because he didn't know what to do. And so what his mom had done, or what my cousin had done, was basically try to tell him that, so we have to be gentle with this one, so it's just like how some of us like certain things and some of us don't like certain things. It's the same with animals, so you notice how she's got older brother, you notice how Abang doesn't like it when people come and like scare him, but you're okay with it. So you see how everyone is different, and it's the same with animals. So our cat at home really, really likes cuddles, but this cat's a bit older and he doesn't really like it when people squeeze him too hard. So we'll go really gentle, okay? So you kind of teach kids about how people are different and how animals are different. It's something that has to happen with younger children more than with older children. With older children, you can kind of just point out and say that, this cat's a little bit older. He's kind of a little bit scared of people. So you kind of just want to be very, very gentle. But see, if you stroke him very softly, he likes it, So you can do that with older children. But with younger kids, you kind of have to make a bit more of a comparison with them and other people and things like that.
My problem is I have really cute rabbits, right? And everybody thinks, oh my God, all these. So I let them run around sometimes in the park. And then kids run up and I'm like, I've got an older rabbit who's slightly gangster. So doesn't like other people that doesn't except me. So it's a bit strange. But she looks so cute, and kids just come up, and then she starts having the ears at the fold back. And then she's like, I'm gonna get you kind of thing, right? I think in general, people need to understand like that it's about boundaries as well, right? Isn't it?
You need to go and educate the children at the park about your rabbit.
Yeah. One more thing that freaks me out, every time I watch videos online, and it's always like the dodo or something. And yes, some of these animals are completely fine. You can do anything to them. They introduce all these really young babies, and then the dogs kind of babysit them. But sometimes the babies are pulling on the ear, and then my worry is that like sometimes a baby is too young, you don't know what you're doing. Poke the eye of the animal, and then the animal attacks. Sometimes I think parents leave the kids like they're too trusting with the animal in a way. Is that a valid fear?
That is a valid fear, right? Because you have to acknowledge that pets are they are animals at the end of the day, right? And you can't explain the situation to them, and so they are unpredictable in certain situations, right? So I would say if you have, and I've seen the videos that you're talking about where like parents come back with the baby straight from the hospital in like the carrier,
and then the dogs just lick them in the face. Wow.
And just plonk the carrier right there. I would tell parents that if you have a child that is too young to be independent, kind of don't leave them unsupervised with your pet. So if we're dealing with toddlers, like you said, who like to tug on their ears and poke them in the eye, don't leave your child unattended with a pet. You know, if you're there, just kind of be like, no, sweetie, don't do that, it hurts. Because you know how, like, if I pull your ear, it's like, this is no fun, right? So kind of pull their hand away. So those are types of things that they're learning, because again, they are learning how to interact. So they probably don't think there's anything wrong with pulling on their fluffy ears and things like that. So it's our job to kind of help them understand that those are not things that the pet's really gonna like. So if your child is older, like in primary school and stuff, that yeah, go ahead, you know, you can kind of leave them. But if they're at an age where they are a little bit more inquisitive, maybe a little bit more destructive, then probably don't leave them with the pet unsupervised constantly. So if you know that your child is hanging out in the living room and the cat is there, just kind of sit by them and just kind of watch what the child is doing. And then, you know, go from there. But yeah, it's a very valid concern. I've had a few incidences, both personally and professionally, where kids have tugged on the cat's tail and the cat has turned around to kind of like scratch at them. And then that adds to the fear. Yeah. Right. So it's unlikely that they're going to want to play with cats ever again after that incident. So it's very important that we give our children a positive introduction to having pets as much as we can.
Yeah.
So don't leave them unsupervised if they're very young.
Yeah, because the worst part is, let's say they scratch or they nip, right? Suddenly it's the animal's fault. I'm like, yeah, but the animals don't know, you know? So it's your job to make sure your kids are safe, you know?
Yeah, you know, like, I mean, I have a cat who's coincidentally sleeping right here. I have a cat who is very grumpy, and even we find it very difficult to cuddle her. She kind of like tells us when she wants cuddles, but the rest of the time she will hiss and bite and scratch, and she's one of the rescues that we have. And so knowing that, I'm very, very quick to tell guests who have children, like, yeah, let's kind of give the black one a little bit of space, you know, because that one can be really, really grumpy. So be really, really careful with that one. So I kind of preempt it because I don't want, you know, a bad interaction with this cat to kind of affect. So, you know, I kind of make that step, you know, not because I don't want people to cuddle the cats. It's just I don't want that to happen to young kids. So yeah, so it's like you say, it's never the pet's fault, because they don't understand, they can't be reasoned with. So it's really our job as adults to kind of make sure that we're protecting our kids from that kind of interaction.
Now, Katyana, any final advice to parents on why they should or shouldn't get pets for their children?
Like I said, I think from an emotional development, from a communication skills, from a psych perspective, it is wonderful to have pets. But I always tell parents, make sure that it's something that you research extensively before you decide to do it. Don't just go and grab a pet that you see on the side of the street, or an animal you see on the side of the street, without kind of understanding what that responsibility is going to entail, not just from a financial perspective, but also from a health perspective, and also you know, making sure that the animal that you choose to have within your home is safe for your young child, right? So I would say, don't just kind of, you know, a lot of people are attracted to the fact that, oh, it's cute, let's bring him home, you know, without really looking into what this responsibility is going to entail. And since we are kind of wanting this sort of relationship to teach our children something, you have to make sure you kind of know what you're signing up for. Because not just to your child, I also kind of feel you're doing a disservice to the animal if you're just going to adopt him or her and then neglect him or her. So I am a really big, you know, supporter of telling parents, if you want to have pets, great, but do the research, look up, you know, what you can on the internet about how to care for this type of animal. Make sure that you take this animal to the vet, get them checked out, understand if there's any medical concerns with the animal that might impact your child's health. Do your research. There's no such thing as too little research. And if your child has a pre-existing medical condition, consult your medical professional before making the decision to adopt a pet and see whether it's safe for your child. But otherwise, if you have all of your ducks in a row, having a pet is something that will really help your child, I think.
Did your parents have cats before you arrived?
My mom has had cats since she was a child. So it was just something that we always had in the house. And I had asthma, and I grew up, you know, like the whole orang tua saying, where my grandmother was like, no cats, you know. But I just always had cats from when I was younger. I guess because my allergy was not as severe as my younger brother. So my younger brother till today, he's 24, and he will cuddle, like really snuggle with our cats. And then he gets this face, and then I know that it's kind of hit him, and he'll be like, okay, I'm done. And he hands the cat over and he gets an antihistamine. So, you know, it's a lot more intense with him, and it's something that doctors can actually check now. So you can take your child to a pediatrician or to an allergy specialist to determine how allergic your child is to your pet. That's something they can do now. So these are just some things that you can actually look into. But I've always had cats. It's always been in my household. If it's your cat, it's your responsibility. So a big chunk of my salary each month goes to my cats. Oh. Having to pay for their food and their toys and everything. So, you know, it's taught me responsibility from a very young age. It's also taught me a lot of self-soothing. So one of the things that was really beneficial was I was an only child for a really long time. And so my younger brother's 8.5 years younger than me. And so I didn't really have the benefit of a playmate. I didn't really have the benefit of someone kind of comforting me when I was sad because mom was working and things like that. So the pet kind of filled that void for me growing up, you know? And so even when I went off to college, I adopted a cat from the local market in Melbourne. And I brought her back. So that cat actually is in KL right now. And that cat became my housemate for all, you know, the time I was in Australia. So, you know, it's definitely something that brings some value into your life, I think.